And
thank you.
good day. I'm
Yes.
supposed to say good day from now on. And welcome to Across the Pond with myself and Leland. And we're broadcasting from Wiltshire and from Michigan. And every week at 12 p.m. Eastern, we get together to discuss what's happening in our respective countries. Good afternoon, Leland.
Good afternoon, Stephen. Pleasure to be here and across the pond as always. And I noticed you mentioned go ahead and Google across the pond this morning, and it was interesting because I Googled it as across the pond, and I saw some other people out there that are on across that use that same key term.
Yep.
And then if we add our names, either one of us, Leland or Stephen, to that term, we're all over the front page. I think it's awesome. So
yep, we earn page one now. So I can say I'm Stephen from across the pond, and you can say
I'm Leland from across the other side of the pond. No, that wouldn't work.
well, that would still work probably. But I think the point about that is that having a show title which is consistent. I mean, we've always used, since we began this 8-9 weeks ago, we've always used Across the Pond.
Yes.
And when we started, as we said, as you said, when we Googled it, everybody's doing it. But now it's just you and me. So
yeah, there's a radio broadcast, I believe, over on your side of the pond that uses Across the Pond as a title for the radio show, but I'm not certain. I haven't looked that deep into it. So what's the big news today?
Right, the big news today is actually a step back in time. I just want to screen share for a moment.
Okay.
If you like.
Yeah, go for it. It was either that or I could do. I was going to set it up on vMix so that I could pull in some other screens, but you go ahead and do that one, and I'll have one ready for something else.
All right. Okay. Now I'm going to go to that screen. And I want to go here. Right. Just a moment. I've got a problem.
Uh-oh.
I'm hearing myself.
Just mute the tab. Mute the tab on your FireTalk browser there, or your other browser that has the audio coming through.
I think I'm okay now. Right. Okay. Close to us, about 20 miles away, is a place called Imber, and you can see the bus there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
In 1943, Imber was a village. It was a farming village with 2 churches and people living there. And in 1943, the government said, you have to leave. You can come back after the war, but you've got to leave for now. And everybody was compensated, and they left the village and they went to live elsewhere, all looking forward to coming back when the war finished in 45. Now, it was then taken over by the Ministry of Defence. The Ministry of Defence said, you can't come back. And it is now a deserted village owned by the Ministry of Defence. And 3 times a year, they allow civilians to visit the village, which has a church. And we were lucky enough this Sunday to go to the village and to catch the service in the church itself, which obviously only runs 1 day a year. And after that, the gentleman who's responsible for preserving the village and making sure that people can go there, civilian, he was awarded the British Empire Medal. So we were able to watch that award ceremony with the Lord Lieutenant of the county presenting him with the honour which was given to him by the Queen. Now, it is, let's go into Wikipedia and the BBC site, it is a deserted village. And I'll just take you quickly around it. So you arrive by bus or walking or by car, and then you're greeted by this. It is actually now, in 43, it was training for D-Day. Now it's training for any operations in Iran, Iraq, the Middle East, anywhere around there. And those houses are used by the troops to simulate battle within a city. Yeah. Now, as a general public, we're not allowed to go there. We can't step on it, but we can actually see it. And so Sunday was an interesting day. We went to the church, service in the church, and as I say, afterwards we watched the medal being presented. So I'll now come back, hopefully.
No, the thing that there's kind of a conflict of what people believe, whether it was abandoned or actually whether they were evicted, which leads, to the fact that they weren't really allowed to come back. Isn't that correct?
Right. Yeah, I mean, they were evicted in 43. The village is abandoned. There's no doubt about that, because they weren't allowed to go back. Yeah. But it's one of those areas. We found another town which is about 2 miles away from here, which we may well go and visit, which suffered the same fate, but is now being brought back. Yes. So that's my story, my Wiltshire story for this week. Is an
Awesome.
insight into Imber. Now, happenings during the last week, of course, is Facebook Live, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I could probably pull something up here. I know it was, excuse me, it was Rebecca Jarvis who made a very lengthy presentation. Well, I shouldn't say lengthy presentation, but if you let me just zoom in here a little bit, I may be able to get a good overlay of what we've got here. I'll zoom in on her and at least bring it up here in the window if I can move it over far enough. Just give me a second here and I can probably even play the video while we're here.
Okay.
This was kind of interesting because, and this is just out of our Facebook group. Barbara posted this over in our Facebook group the other day because it was Monday that Facebook announced they were going to release the 2-seat platform to those who had verified public profiles. And actually, they have to be public figures or people that are well known across the world, you might say. Similar to what Dwayne Johnson did when he first came out on Facebook Live. So I can kind of fast forward. Let me just zoom back one click here. I'll get her in the frame a little better so I can actually show what she was up to. I should be able to pull this off pretty well.
Okay.
Can you still see her in the frame there?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So I know it was at about 11 minutes or so. Mr. Wonderful himself. So I'm going to mute the sound on this for a second and get up to 11 minutes.
Right.
And this is where Mr. Wonderful himself, Kevin Leary, showed up on the scene.
Right.
And
Okay.
what we have here is not what I expected from Facebook Live with 2 seats. This kind of disappointing from my perspective. What do you think, Stephen?
I agree with you because it was trumpeted well in advance that it was going to be 2 people live. Now, taking them at the word, that's what it is. But the quality isn't suitable, is it? It's just if you and I had put this together and we said, use our new 2-person system, people would have said, you must be joking.
Yeah, I think so. And it was kind of a cheesy presentation for the fact that Kevin O'Leary, a billionaire, once, twice, 3 times over at least, had the worst demonstration of video quality on his end of the camera, which I felt was kind of, okay, you got $1 billion. You can't at least go out and get a nice DSLR camera or DLR, sorry, whatever those cameras are called, to get out there and actually show good quality video as a demo of what this is supposed to allow us to do. Did you watch Vicky Fitch's show last night?
I did, which brings us to the sort of next thing we're going to talk about is Vicky Fitch and professionally produced shows.
This is how Facebook Live should look with 2 people, if you ask me. I'll give a quick presentation of that. Also, she started off with some actual really cool audio tracks, and I don't have that all set up, but this is her banner. She came out with a banner saying for the He Said, She Said show with her special guest, Ian Murray, who is obviously world-renowned also. They're both world-renowned stage speakers and presenters and keynote speakers. And then when you get into the interview itself, here they are, 2 people side by side with banner and marquee running underneath and takes and cuts back and forth between the 2 people. This is what I was expecting from Facebook Live with the 2-person seating. Didn't happen. So you
and me both. Now, this is not the first time that we've actually seen this sort of thing, and it's produced by an outfit, isn't it, in the States, which actually professionally produced the video for you, the live video.
The live video here?
Yeah, that Vicky's using.
No, actually what Vicky, I believe, she has a production team, which is I'm not going to call it a huge team, but she has a gentleman that works. She just shows up. Ian just shows up. They don't use Skype. And honestly, what I believe they're doing is they're more than likely using Wirecast, or it could even be vMix. I can do the same type of broadcast on Facebook Live with vMix that I'm using right now for the presentation I'm doing with you guys. So this is not an impossibility through RMTP. This is RTMP. Man, my letter acronyms are not working today. So with the real-time media protocol and broadcasting to Facebook Live through the rear end interface, this is what we get. And that's what she's doing. And honestly, if you have that extra person there to be your production manager and run the cameras and do the screens and share the page graphics while you just do your interview, it works out much better, obviously. But that's how that went down with Vicky.
And that's as Barbara just said, that was Robert Hicks behind the scenes. The third
it is
person. Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
My slide's a little out of frame there. I'm sorry, Stephen. I thought I was in frame.
So we're going to see an increasing number of those, aren't we, in coming weeks?
Yeah, and I think more people are going to be becoming accustomed to the fact. Let's bring that over just a little bit. Is that covering my head there? Okay, that should be a little better. Okay, I'm all right, as long as I keep that out of there. Yeah, I think what we're going to find is more people are going to understand that it's not that difficult, really, to do these types of video broadcasts with the software that's available. And it's not really that expensive. You can probably do this same thing. Really, all it is a camera with an overlay of 2 squares on top with a lower third. It's all captured in one image, basically. And then you frame the windows, kind of like what I'm doing here with this window in the corner of my head. You just frame 2 windows side by side, and then you have those available as full frame windows whenever you want to cut to them, like they do here with Vicky and with Ian, where they simply go back and forth between the 2 speakers without having to see what is going on behind the scenes. So it works out pretty well. It's a little difficult when you're doing it all on your own because there's a lot of buttons to push, but.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people are going to be starting doing professional shows.
That was me.
Yeah, I'm just curious what happened to the viewer numbers when the show is professionally produced as opposed to a semi-professional situation.
When you say progressional, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Stephen.
Or the viewing numbers.
As we went on, more people showed up. I sat through the whole show that night, and it was about 45 minutes, I think, was the entire broadcast. And it was kind of fun because I shared the show in the Facebook group, and people from the Facebook group started to show up. So I was glad to see that. So it was obviously people got the word, and there were some organic views that showed in. I was sharing links for her sake when they mentioned Ian's sake, because he stole her Fitch Slap hashtag from her on Bitly. I thought that was kind of funny, but there weren't a lot of people watching. I think we had about 30 people at the most at one point, and on average it was about 15 during the live broadcast. But I'd be curious, right now I see it's up to 839 views on the page that's in our Facebook group. So obviously a lot of people have seen it.
What people are watching the replay, because as we've said, not everybody wants live video. They're quite happy to do it in their own time slot, aren't they?
Well, you certainly can't follow 100 people that are going live every day and manage to catch them all, or you'll never get anything done.
That's very true. Now, another thing I'd like to just touch on, and I'm going back up the list of things that we discussed earlier. We haven't mentioned it yet, and it's remiss of us. As the number 1 and number 2 country in the world at the Olympics. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got 100 medals?
I have the tally right here, Stephen. One second. I think it's close to 112 now. 16 Olympic medal count is how you can find that on Google if you'd like to see the charts yourself. There's a tracker over at CBS Sports. So currently, right now, let's see, we are at, we got ads rolling in on the page even. Nope, it's actually more than that, Stephen. Let me just flip over to the screen so you can see what I'm doing here. I'll pull this into the window. Whoops, that probably doesn't show up so well. Let's do it this way. I'm just going to pull that in as an overlay so you can see it. All right, ignore the sound. It sounds like the page is bringing in some audio. Yeah, we're up to a total of 121 medals right now for the U.S. 46 gold, 37 silver, 38 bronze, and of course Great Britain has 67, which is nearly half. Stephen, you guys better catch up.
No, we've got come on. We've got a quarter of the population. So
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing with
relay.
you. There's no way that would even be. I mean, the comparison is actually greater when you consider population per capita. You've probably gotten more medals than we could ever imagine. So,
Well,
27 gold, 23 silver, and 17 bronze for Great Britain. So
yeah,
great job.
which is the best we've got for 108 years.
Now, now, what about overall? Let's take a quick look there to see exactly what happens over the period of time, all time. This
Yeah,
was a video I just dug up today, and I'm just going to play it real quick. It's only a minute long. So it's going to run through a lot of the different people here. We have medals for everyone. So we have in 11th place so far is Austria.
yeah.
And 10th is Hungary with 167 medals in the gold category. Of course, in 9th place, Norway, 174. 8th place is Sweden with 193, and I'm just counting the gold medals here, folks.
Yep.
7th is China with 213. France is now in 6th with 233. We have Italy in 5th place with 235. And looky there, 4th place is Great Britain.
Yep.
Has 246 gold medals. And we follow up with 3rd place with Germany, 547.
Yep.
2nd is Russia, who always competes with us in the Olympics, 710.
Yep.
And the U.S. still leads, as always, will probably be the case because of the per capita, 1,073 gold medals for a lifetime. So, and I apologize for that screen. Sometimes you have to watch those little things that show up at the end of the videos.
No.
Okay.
Now, if we go back 20 years, the games in 1988, we won 8 medals in total. So in those 20 years, we've gone from 8 to 67, and we've actually, I mean, those are across 15 sports, and it's because, quite simply, 20 years ago we started the lottery, which is called the National Lottery, and the National Lottery has funded a group called Sport UK. So all our athletes who are out there had been sponsored. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
I didn't really even get a chance to watch this year, Stephen. I have not been, I've been so busy with businesses that I'm opening or adjusting, and my wife's opening a new business.
Yeah.
So, and so is my daughter. So it's just one of those things that I have not had an opportunity to sit down and watch any of the Olympic Games. I'm going to probably be on CBSSports.com or YouTube watching replays of everything that took place in the sports that I really like to follow. So,
yeah.
I love the live events, though. I really do.
Indeed. I mean, it's a special 2 weeks. Nothing went disastrously wrong. And I hope that the Paralympic Games, which follows shortly, is as successful for everybody involved, and that there are no incidents, because security there was phenomenal. There were tens of thousands of police and troops in place to prevent any problems. So let's hope that that goes ahead without a hitch. So that's the Olympics in another 4 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they all arrived back in the UK today and were welcomed with open arms. And they can now have a rest and go on holiday, and then they can actually start training again. Yeah, because
well deserved. Now, it was sad though for a moment there to see, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't have it in front of me right now, but there was certainly the wrestling Olympic team and the gentleman who was involved in the supposed vandalism at the gas station, and that issue really overshadowed a lot of the winnings that were taking place, and those people who deserved credit and time on air for their accomplishments in managing to win medals while this was all going on. And this fiasco became headline news all over the place and kind of robbed them of their glory, which was really kind of sad. And I hate to see things like that overshadow Olympics. And honestly, an apology I don't think was, it's good that he apologized, but it's not enough to repair the damages. I think he should be held a little more accountable for what he's done. From a legal standpoint, obviously. I'm sorry, it's an Olympic wrestler out vandalizing a bathroom in a gas station. What is wrong with this child? I mean, he's just a child, obviously, because he's supposed to be a grown man competing in a worldwide sport known as the Olympic Games, and here he is getting into trouble like that. That's just an embarrassment, not only for the U.S. and his family, but for the pretense of the Olympics itself. It's like, wow, how can you do that to tarnish the good name of what we try to put together as a worldwide sport competition? So,
Well said.
Sad.
Well said. Yes. Right. Okay. So we move on from the Olympics, and what else is happening in the world at the moment?
Well, there was another thing that came up on Facebook. It's supposedly some competition for Snapchat.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's going to happen because it's just not really Facebook's forte. It's geared toward high school kids. Okay. They're supposedly trying. It's called Life Stage. I don't know if you saw this or not. Joel Com announced it in his group the other day. It's going to be an app. It was created by a 13-year-old hacker, you might call him. He'd been coding since he was a young kid, and now he's 19, but he just helped them produce this app. And it is just that. It's kind of, you get involved with your school, you locate your school, you get into that clique, and then it's, the schools. I see rivalry going on there. There's going to be obviously that type of issue when you start to segregate kids. And I think it also doesn't do well for community building, because what it's going to do is it's already the fact that kids don't like to be on Facebook because their parents are on Facebook.
Yep.
Kids have gone to Snapchat because their parents weren't on Snapchat. And now all the parents are moving to Snapchat. So it's like the kids can't get away in a sense, but I don't believe that they should be afraid of their parents. I think in reality, kids from yesteryear anyway, when we grew up, we try to avoid our parents as much as possible while we were growing up. But I think if we really want to build a good society on this planet, we need to start to understand our children and not befriend them per se, but get to know them and respect them, and at least show some fortitude in all of that as we assemble moving forward and getting past, all this hypocrisy that's taken place in the past. But this Life Stage is supposedly, the article was to crush Snapchat. What do you think, honestly? Do you think Facebook can compete in any way with that type of application, with something like this?
I don't. Well, it's got the financial muscle too, but whether it's got the right tactics or not is a different question entirely. I mean, it's not just a question of announcing the product. What you've got to get from an early stage is adoption of that product by your target market. And we're all elsewhere at the moment. You've got to have something really strong to entice them. I mean, if we think of ourselves, to move us away from Facebook would take quite something, wouldn't it? I mean, we're not going to shift from Facebook at the moment, because that's where our families are, which is the point. I mean, from a personal point of view, most of my family are actually on Facebook. But what I don't do is I don't actually catch every post that they're doing. I just drop in occasionally on what they're doing. I love the picture. That's a beautiful picture. How is it at the moment?
That's my backyard, Stephen, if I haven't mentioned that before. That's about where it's at. The water level's gone down a little because it hasn't rained in the last few days. But we were fortunate enough. I had a big celebration. I turned 50 last Thursday. So, and thank you for the birthday wishes on Facebook, by the way, Stephen. And from all those who might be watching that did also give me those little kudos out there. So I did make my first half century this week. We had a party here at the house this weekend, and fortunately the rain from the week before kept the water levels up high enough that myself and my brothers and my nephew were all out wading in the water at about hip waist high and catching all kinds of smallmouth fish over the weekend. So smallmouth bass, I'm sorry. But we had a great time. So it was really good. We had about 30 people here at the house, and enjoyed the fact that even though the rain came in, it was very brief. It flew by. We were supposed to get thunderstorms and lightning and everything else. And it was a chance, honestly, for my family to get together, because it was the first time that my genetic father and my adoptive father had ever met since I was born, gotten together anyway. So my brother Chris from my real father, and my brothers who are my adoptive father's sons, all got to meet, and everybody got together. So it was a really good time. It was well deserved and a long time coming. Yeah, it was.
Special time. Well, I can say, and there might be people in the audience who will agree with me here, but your decade ahead, the next 10 years are probably the best years of your life. So go for it.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. Glad to know that, because that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. I look back on my 50s with fondness. Yeah. So yeah, I mean the sort of weather in the UK, but Louisiana has been suffering, hasn't it, in the last week or so?
Yeah, unfortunately, at least somebody representative of our government officials showed up. You know, I don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about Donald Trump most of the time, but he made an informal visit down to Louisiana during the flood, or after the flood, I should say, following the flood. Hillary Clinton was nowhere to be found. She was taking a rest from the Democratic convention, and Barack Obama was on vacation. So it really didn't mean anything to them at all whatsoever. And yet, again, I'm not a supporter or a fond follower of Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form, but I think he at least showed some sense of, you know, it was heartfelt, because he went down there with a truckload of water and food and toys and such, and didn't have this huge media blitz, and he didn't have any announcements or a huge security force behind him. It was just him and a baseball cap and some of his security team that he hires privately, going out and doing what was the right thing for, you know, our government to represent in a situation of disaster like that. So it was good to see that he pulled that off.
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, we get all the headlines over here as well, and that played well over here too. Because when you do something like that, which to all intents and purposes is selfless, then you know that's the thing that matters to all of us is to do things. Now, just talking about networking for a moment, because we enjoy networking. We've met a lot of people through it, and the principle of networking is give us gain. Now, that's something I dearly believe in, because if you are willing to do something without being asked to help people, then eventually, not the day after, not the week after, or the month after, you will be rewarded for doing it. Do you agree as a general principle?
Yeah, I think we should always give of ourselves as much as possible. And if we've ever thinking we've given too much, go ahead and give some more, because it's never going to be detrimental to you.
No, that's true. That's true.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, and it's always a chance to learn and to help someone. Because we've got this expertise over the years, and that should be freely available, and we should be helping people. So we agree on that. We agree on principles of networking and helping each other. Just on that, there is a new Facebook group called Run by the Dojo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what's Run by the Dojo? That's a new one on me. I haven't heard of that one at all.
All right. Okay. It's she was on Blab. Most certain. I'll send you the link later anyway. Let's try to mention it. If you remember it, I'll remind me. But that's sort of a new watering hole. It's obviously not BTS, but it has potential.
I heard there was another one out though. One of the Aaron McKay from Blab invited me into a group recently, which was friends of those who did get together before Blab went down.
All right.
And you know, it's obvious a lot of the people miss the community aspect of what Blab brought to the table. And I am seeing, at least in regard to the communities themselves and the groups of people that formed, and there's always little cliques of people that are going to spread out from that. But there's been a lot of success, I think, from those community efforts. There's been obviously the fact that people are moving to several different platforms. You and I, we chose Fire Talk as our choice platform versus some of the others. And that's not to say we can't syndicate as we move ahead. I would really love to put together a similar broadcast to what Vicky Fitch and Ian did yesterday. It's what we have here right now is what we're looking at. We have this atmosphere of two people talking, two talking heads, you call it, and having the ability to present data in a live format and get the following and get the people to subscribe and get the people to hang out as a community effort. So I think in the end, we're still going to see more of these groups pop up from those who were part of those groups, but still haven't been invited into some of these other ones, because I know there were hundreds, if not couple of thousand people that I associated with that I haven't seen since like
Yep.
in the last 4 or 5 months. So
They've just disappeared. They've just
yeah, where are
disappeared.
these people? Maybe
Indeed.
Twitter. We'll go find them on Twitter or something. That might be one way to go.
Yep. Yeah, they're out there, and they'll come knocking on the door. There's no doubt about that. And there are groups, as we know, which welcome.
Well, what do you think is going to happen over on Twitter, Stephen? I know because of Blab, Twitter was highly incorporated into that whole product, and that was where a lot of people did their community effort. They spent a lot of time chatting and sharing and liking and rehashing or hashtagging and retweeting over there. Now, at least Twitter is going to try and really pull some heavy strings come NFL season because they will be broadcasting live some of the NFL events. So do you think Periscope is going to make I'll say a comeback, because I don't ever hear anybody talking that much. I know some people that are professionals go out there and do their broadcasts on Periscope. I don't personally broadcast on Periscope because I don't like to just sit there and talk at an audience that I can't see. Do you think there's an opportunity there?
I think in terms of broadcasting, we've been used to the model of terrestrial television, and then came cable television, and now headed towards internet television, and that's the way things are going. So that major events we can actually see on Facebook, on Twitter, on Periscope, and we're not going to be tied to the broadcasters we grew up with. They've got to change their ways, haven't they? That they've got to go and broadcast on other platforms. I think Twitter is still my favorite network. If you want to get a message out to anybody, then you send out a tweet, and that tweet gets seen. Now, I've heard people say the life of a tweet is about 20 minutes. That is not true. If it's a darn good tweet, the life of a tweet is a couple of days, because first of all, you've got 24 hours, because you tweet now, then it's got 24 hours before everybody's actually been online. So all of your followers, and I've got about 20,000 followers all around the globe. So a tweet can last 24, 48 hours. And it's the best way of getting information out. And if we're now going to be able to do video there as well, then it's a whole new game. I mean, it's just so exciting, the things that are actually going on at the moment. What's your take?
Yeah, and I really hope they do encourage more people to use it in a fashion that maybe even this type of broadcast out there on Periscope, that they do split the seats and allow for guests to take part in those broadcasts, or even open up an RTMP feed in the back end so that people can shoot through with a third-party encoder and get their video out onto Twitter. Because so many people talk Twitter's going down, it's going to fail, it's going to close, it's going bankrupt and all this. I don't see that. When you're making $600 million every nearly every quarter, or is it I think it's every quarter, that's a lot of money to be hashed around. So it's not like they don't have money. They may not have spent it very well in the past, and they didn't utilize their resources the way they should. But I think with the changing of the guard as they had over there at Twitter recently, well, 6 months ago now, that it takes time. It takes the effort of the new people to show what they've brought to the program to really see where it's going to go next. So let's really see what happens.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, Barbara. The speed and distribution with Twitter is definitely a plus, that they can get the word out. I mean, most of the online, you look at shows like The Voice and America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent, all of those are still using Twitter as a primary source of getting involvement with the people out in their audience. I mean, it's not like people are going to Facebook and, head over to Facebook and vote. No, it's not to vote. It's go to Twitter and vote, so we can see now exactly who in America or who in Britain wants these people to succeed. So
the beauty of Twitter is you decide what you see. If you want to follow somebody and you want to follow their tweets, you can. There's nobody sort of sticking an advert in front of you or slicing through your feed. If you set up a Twitter list of the people you're most interested in, you plug that into Hootsuite or TweetDeck or whatever, you can actually see what's going on in their world. real time, and there's no filters, which is
Yeah.
the brilliant thing about it. So if you
Yeah.
want to know what's going on in the world, I mean, if there is a problem anywhere in the world, then a hashtag appears, and you can follow the hashtag and be informed. And as we just said, that's going to be followed by video. So it's not going away anywhere anytime soon. I think the thing is that everybody compares it to Facebook,
Yeah.
and it's
They
not.
do.
It's apples and oranges, isn't it? Because they're two different animals. Two different animals. Facebook is the biggest walled garden in the world. Unless you're on Facebook, you can't see anything. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
true. That's a good
people
point.
tend to people tend to forget this. If you post anything on Facebook, then people on Facebook can see it, but Google can't. We can't. If
That's
you
a
know, I
really good
mean,
point.
if you log out of Facebook, you've lost Facebook.
Yes, yes,
You
absolutely.
know,
And that was
but
Mark Z's process. That was his plan all along, was to create that all-inclusive social environment that you really couldn't escape, that you had to participate in fully. And now I think with this Facebook Live, it was a good idea.
mm,
Facebook Live, the split seat obviously has ruined it for me. I don't see that as being anything moving unless they change up the format real fast.
yeah.
I think that's not gonna be used very much at all, except for by those who really don't get what seating in a potential environment like this can be. And it's been going on like this for years, Stephen. This is nothing new. What we're doing here right now isn't anything new to live broadcasting. But what they've done on that Facebook Live thing is just ridiculous. I hope they don't do anything similar to that on Twitter. I really don't.
But to coin a phrase that we heard a couple of weeks ago, it sucks.
Yeah,
Literally.
it
Because
does.
it's just not, it isn't professional quality. They could do so much more. It's not a question they don't have the resources, and it can't be technical ability, can it? It's just that, like a lot of things, when people try to solve a problem that's not there, they just don't get what people are looking for, which is unfortunate. But it is the way, and occasionally a company will take a wrong turn. And I agree with you. Facebook have not got this right yet. But we shall see. We shall see what happens, because it's in all our interest that they do improve on it.
True.
But as for the gainsayers on Twitter, then no, Twitter is here to stay.
So on other fronts, Google is going to shut down its applications. Did you see that?
No,
Google Apps is going away. That's not to say the Play Store is going to vanish. That's not to say Android apps are going to disappear. If you are familiar with the Google Chrome browser, and
Yep.
you've ever seen the applications tab, the little box off to the side that says apps, if you
Yep.
incorporate it into your browser,
Okay.
that's what we're referring to here. What
Uh-huh.
Google has come to the realization of is that they don't feel that there's enough traction. Obviously, there's only like 1 or 2% of Google Chrome users who actually use many of the Google Chrome apps that are out there. That's not to say they don't use the Android apps, and those will still be inclusive of the Chromebooks. You will still have the OS, the Google OS will still feature its own exclusive apps that, and I think what's happening here is Google wants to create its own privatized operating system,
Yep.
very, very proprietary, so that it's similar to what Bill Gates did with Microsoft, where you
Mhm.
build an OS, you make software for that OS, you sell the software, and Apple did the same thing. Obviously, those two don't get along. You can't combine software from Apple with Microsoft. Now we're going to have, and Linux also, but Linux has the opportunity to take on some of the likenesses of both,
Yeah.
more so the Microsoft end, and it can pick up those types of applications much easier using interfaces inclusive of Linux. But now we have Chrome coming onto the scene with the Chrome OS. So now
Yep.
we're going to have another competitor in the operating system marketplace that, and they're building it quickly. I do believe the way it looks that by 2017, we're going to see a brand new box, probably by the beginning of the year, coming out on the shelves that doesn't say Windows 10 and it doesn't say Apple OS X. It's going to say
Right.
Chrome OS, and that's going to be your other option. So look forward to it. And really, it'll be a lean, mean operating system from what I can see. And it's not going to have anything to, because Google OS is originally a derivative of Linux. but that's not to be the case any longer from what I'm seeing. It's going to be a standalone version of its own operating system. So we'll see what happens.
It's good news. Competition is always good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it'd be good to see what happens there.
Apple
right.
7, that one's on its way out. That should be announced anytime now. The iPhone 7, I should say. Would I say Apple 7?
You said Apple 7. It's
Yeah, I
synonymous.
need to watch how I say that.
There's no problem with that. I mean,
Well,
we've had this. Yep.
It was just 2 hours ago that I saw BGR had an announcement that they are pretty excited about the new phone and the speed tests that they've done. Sounds like, according to what I'm seeing anyway, I'm just going to switch screens for you for a second here.
Okay.
I'll merge it into the background. Basically, it says it's going to obliterate the Galaxy Note 7 and every other smartphone. So this was just printed out 10:54 this morning. Yeah. So it's one of those articles. If you want to go check it out, you can head over to bgr.com and do a quick search in their system for the iPhone 7. So go take a look.
I mean, there are two tribes. There's the Android tribe and the iPhone tribe. Yeah. And you've got people who genuinely could swap from one to the other, but the hardcore fans, it's got to be something special to entice them from one camp to another. But I mean, the fact is, if we go back 10 years, we wouldn't have dreamt that our phones would be capable of doing what they can do now.
Yeah, I agree. Many computers in our pockets that before would have filled a couple of floors of a business office for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the first computer was actually built in Manchester, and that
right.
That took, well, that was big. That was very big. I mean, and it had 1/zillionth of the power of our phones today. So we've come a long way. It just keeps improving, and be interesting to see what happens when the iPhone 7 is released and how Samsung responds. Those are the two big players now, aren't they? Samsung and Apple.
Well, actually, that's not necessarily the case, Stephen, because China has stepped into the cell phone market in a big way. And if you were to happen to Google the fastest phones right now currently that are available, 3 of them aren't even iPhones or Android phones whatsoever. Well, I shouldn't say Android phones, but they're not Samsung, iPhone, or even LG or Motorola. They're actually created by Chinese companies who have been using a newer processor that they've created on their own. One in particular is an 8-core processor inside of a telephone, which is almost unheard of. There are several different ones, but it's the Huawei version, I believe is the way that that's pronounced, is one of them. And there's another out there that I couldn't even pronounce the name of, I don't believe, that I saw recently. So be on the lookout, because actually China has opened the doors to faster computing than we've been able to accomplish here. Intel would be about the closest thing to what we have right now. AMD obviously will be third in place, but when it comes right down to it, the Chinese chips that are being manufactured currently are blowing the doors off of anything that the US, Israel, or any of the other manufacturers such as Japan, which primarily makes transistors, resistors, and other working chips, like video chips and stuff like that. When it comes to processing, it's primarily Intel out of Israel and, of course, AMD. But it looks as though China is going to really make its mark when it comes to processing speed. And see, they've actually built the fastest computer in the world right now recently. So other news to look up.
Indeed. They've been quiet, building up to it, haven't they? And now they're unleashing it on us.
A lot of people over there, they're bound to have some ideas of their own, I'm sure. It's just because, I mean, I'm in a market, Stephen, that I deal in where a lot of manufacturing, and I don't personally source my products from China, but because I deal in vintage products. But when it comes down to it, there are a lot of people going to China and their manufacturers to construct products for them. Now, it used to be Chinese products. We've had scares, we've had toy scares, we've had stroller scares, all these malfunctioning products that were produced over there in the past. And of course, some strange food scares coming from China. But honestly, there are some very resourceful Chinese manufacturers that are producing very high quality products that are being branded by people over here in the States. Now, this is one example, for instance, and I was kind of surprised. And Barb, you'll know very well what I'm talking about here, because I recall in the Facebook group, you were looking for one of these, okay? And if you see this device, you would probably say, okay, he's got a Plantronics Voyager Legend in his hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be mistaken, but in a sense, you'd be absolutely correct, because the version I have here is a no-brand Chinese version of the exact same product that Plantronics put its brand on and sold here in the United States for about $100 a piece. I just bought this on eBay 2 weeks ago for $13.98.
Okay.
So same exact quality, same price, same exact product. I hate to say this is the exact same product. And the only thing that I noticed was in the recording in the headset, when it says that they haven't completely cropped the English with, and that's one thing Plantronics did, was they modified the speaking voice inside the chip. In some way, they used more of an Americanized voice. This one just says, "Your phone off." And it's like, okay, that's fine. My phone's off. I don't need to know much more than that. But you can tell it's improper grammar English from a Chinese speaker, which I don't care. That's fine. Works perfectly great. I love the device. I actually owned a Voyager Legend recently. I lost it a couple of years ago while I was taking junk out to brush out to the brush pile. And I never found it again. I went searching for it, and I really missed it. So when I saw them come on eBay for $13.98, and you go out there and just search for a Voyager Legend Bluetooth device, you'll find them as the top-rated seller on eBay right now, going for $13.98, being imported into New York. I will do that, Barb, into New York, and I got it in like a week and a half, so it was awesome. All right, Stephen, we made it.
We did. Brilliant. Well, that's another show. And well, thank you to everybody who's been watching us. And we'll be back here at the same time next week, when we look forward to talking again about what's happening in our worlds, and hopefully everything will stay quiet until then.
Looking forward to it, Stephen, for sure. I always enjoy our get-togethers. We certainly do need to spend some time on some topics for next week, because I know I'm going to be really scrambling to get a lot of other things done. So let's make it a point to get together one day next week before or even at the end of this week before the show, and we'll try to make something special of next week and go from there.
Sounds like a plan. We could actually. Well, we'll talk about it after the show.
Okay, sounds great.
But do you want to drop how can we find each other? I am, despite Bob, I am Stephen from across the pond.
And I'm Leland from across the pond, the other side per se. But you can find me out here at Fire Talk at firetalk.com/LelandBest or BCB Live. You can also find me at LelandBest.com or at LelandBest Live out on Facebook. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for being here, Steve.
And thank you to okay. Take care, everybody. We'll see you again next week.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.